Welcome, everybody. This is your daily Holy Week devotional. We are here on Wednesday, and this is a twofer, if you will. It's going to be two quick stories back to back, and then how they relate to each other. This is Wednesday. We are going to read Matthew 26, and we're going to read 6 through 16 together today. Matthew 26, 6 through 16. Now while Jesus was at Bethany, in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very costly ointment, and she poured it on his head as he sat at the table. But when the disciples saw it, they were angry, and said, "Why this waste? For this ointment could have been sold for a large sum, and the money given to the poor." But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why do you trouble the woman? She has performed a good service for me. For you will always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. By pouring this ointment on my body, she has prepared me for burial. Truly I tell you, wherever this good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her." Then one of the 12, who was called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I betray him to you?" They paid him 30 pieces of silver, and from that moment he began to look for an opportunity to betray him. Okay, like I said, these are two different stories, but really they go together. They are opposite ends of the spectrum. The first is the anointing at Bethany. Bethany is just outside of Jerusalem. It's where he'd been staying during this Holy Week, and he was traveling back and forth just outside of town, a suburb, if you will, of Jerusalem. And this was a house he'd been staying in, and this woman comes to him. Different stories. It's either an unnamed woman or it was Mary, and one of the Marys, and she pours this ointment, oil, something, perfume on him, and he says that prepares him for burial. He's essentially saying that she understands. I'm getting ready to die, and this is the only chance that someone like this is going to have to do this thing for me. You know, you're always going to have opportunities. You're always going to have these other things to do. But I'm not always going to be here. Interestingly enough, if you go back and look at what a jar of this kind of ointment would have been, scholars believe that this could have been almost a year's salary worth of oil. That this would have cost essentially about 300 drachmas, or 300 silver pieces, to anoint him for this. Judas, on the other hand, sees this as a great waste and says, you know, maybe this isn't exactly all it's cracked up to be. Maybe I'm not seeing this all right. So he goes to the chief priests and says, "Well, will you pay me to betray him?" And they say, 30. We'll give you a month's salary to betray Jesus. I find this so interesting because you have two different people here, both choosing a path that's very similar, or and having the same similarities to it. This woman chooses to follow Jesus, and it costs her a lot. It costs her literally a year's salary. Okay, anywhere from, in today's money, we're talking $30,000 or so to follow Jesus. Judas has the opportunity to betray Jesus, and all he gains is a month's salary. Essentially 1/10 or 1/12 of what the woman sacrificed to follow him. I think that's important because the cost of following Jesus is always higher and always more difficult to pay than it costs to not follow him. The cost of betrayal, the cost of turning your back, even in today's society, is essentially free. It costs you nothing to not follow Jesus. So it is a sacrifice, and it is difficult, and it is hard. But Jesus was right. There's always opportunities. And this woman saw how important Jesus was to her life, and she said, "I don't care. I don't care how much it costs me. It's worth it to do this one thing and truly follow Jesus and commit to him." So that's what I want you to think about this week, that sometimes following Jesus is difficult. Sometimes doing the right thing is hard. But ultimately, it pays off, because that's the thing that separates us from the rest of the world. And that's the thing that ensures our salvation. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to posting another one of these tomorrow, and we will get to have an abbreviated version of our Maundy Thursday service. So, thank you guys very much, and we will see you tomorrow.